Stanley Black was boiling with anger, yelling into his phone as his SUV tore through the muddy roadside. One sharp turn, swoosh, splash! Mud exploded everywhere, drowning a woman standing quietly by the road. Stanley hit the brakes, ready to insult whoever was unlucky enough to be there. Then he looked, and his breath caught. Liliana, his ex-wife. Stanley's shock lasted only half a second before he burst into loud, wicked laughter. "Look at you! Still suffering," he mocked, slapping his steering wheel before speeding away. But Liliana didn't flinch. She slowly lifted her face, wiping mud from her eyes, calm, controlled, dangerously composed. Not poor, not helpless, just wearing simple clothes because she was on her way to distribute food at an orphanage. And as she stared in the direction Stanley drove off, her lips curved into a cold, knowing smile. "You just splashed the wrong woman, Stanley." The real chaos had only just begun.
The mud still dripped from Liliana's hair and clothes as she stood by the roadside, watching Stanley Black's SUV vanish into the distance. Her heart pounded, not with fear but with fury. Stanley, of all people. Her ex-husband. The man who once called her nothing had just thrown mud all over her in public, laughing like a madman. She wiped her face slowly, letting the muddy water drip from her fingers, her hands trembling, but not from weakness. It was controlled rage, burning quietly beneath her calm exterior. People nearby stared, some whispering, some laughing at the ridiculous scene. Liliana didn't flinch. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and stepped forward, the mud squelching under her sandals with every step. Today, she was no longer the poor, helpless woman Stanley remembered. Today, she was confident, composed, and untouchable. Her life had changed since he last saw her. A voice snapped her from her thoughts. "Madam, who did this to you?" her driver asked, eyes wide with shock. Liliana smiled faintly, brushing off the mud from her sleeve. "Take me home first," she said calmly, every word dripping with quiet authority. The car glided down the road, eventually arriving at a sprawling mansion, guarded by uniformed soldiers who snapped to attention at the sight of her. "Madam, who did this to you?" one of the soldiers gasped, his voice a mixture of concern and disbelief. Liliana let a small, knowing smile curve her lips. "It's fine. Just take me inside." Inside, the mansion was pristine, every corner exuding wealth and power. She walked through the grand hallways with poise, the mud on her dress contrasting sharply with the elegance surrounding her. Upstairs, Jack Smith, her husband, sat in his office. The large screen on his wall displayed a breaking news clip. His wife, Liliana, covered in mud, standing by the roadside after a shocking encounter with a billionaire. His jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. He immediately picked up the phone and called her. "Liliana, is this true?" His voice was sharp, tense. From the other end, Liliana's calm voice replied, "It's true. Stanley Black didn't recognize me at first, but laughed at me when he discovered I am the one." Jack's hands clenched into fists. The man who dared humiliate his wife in public. He was about to learn that Liliana was no longer the woman he once knew. She had power now. She had influence, and she had him. The city might have laughed at the scene earlier, but inside that mansion, a storm was already brewing. And Stanley Black had no idea how dangerous it was going to get. Stanley Black threw himself into the leather couch of his penthouse, fuming. The memory of mud splattering all over Liliana, his ex-wife, still danced in his mind. He shook his head and laughed, a little too loud, trying to convince himself it was funny. "Did you see that, guys? I mean, really?" he shouted across the room, pointing to the puddle he imagined in the air. "I hit a puddle, and bam! Mud everywhere! Perfect timing!" His friends, lounging with expensive drinks and smirks, chuckled. "Classic Stanley," one of them said. "You always know how to ruin someone's day." Stanley leaned back, throwing his head in mock pride. "Not just anyone's day," he said with a wicked grin. "Her day. Liliana. My ex-wife. I've been laughing about this for hours." Another friend laughed and raised his glass. "She had it coming, man. Remember how she used to, complain about everything?" Stanley chuckled, slapping his knee. Exactly. Karma finally knocked. Or maybe I delivered it. He laughed so hard, his friends joined in, the room ringing with chaotic amusement. Then, someone picked up Stanley's phone. It had been buzzing nonstop. Stanley waved it off. Nah, it's just notifications. Probably someone sending me memes. She deserves this, he said, laughing. But one of his friends finally insisted. Bro, check the news. Seriously, look at this. Reluctantly, Stanley unlocked the phone and scrolled. His laughter faltered. The screen loaded a breaking news clip, and there she was, mud-soaked, standing by the roadside. Stanley opened his mouth to laugh, but froze. Then the camera panned back. Soldiers, guards, luxury cars, a massive mansion guarded like a fortress, and beside Liliana, a man in uniform, tall and imposing, moved with authority. Stanley blinked. His fingers trembled. Wait, is that? His friends crowded around the phone, their laughter dying in their throats. Is that Liliana? One whispered, eyes wide. Yeah, my ex-wife? Stanley muttered, voice cracking slightly. But she can't, she's... The clip zoomed in. Liliana walked with poise, mud dripping off her, but she didn't even flinch. The man next to her, Jack Smith, stood like a wall, exuding power and control. Every soldier snapped to attention at his slightest gesture. A friend gasped. Holy, she's married? Another friend stared, mouth open. To him? That's General Smith's son, the one no one messes with. Stanley's eyes widened. His laughter had completely died. He sank lower into the couch, shaking his head. This isn't happening. I humiliated her, and she's married to him? He ran a hand through his hair, muttering. She's untouchable now. Untouchable. The room went silent. Even his friends, who had laughed at his mud prank just minutes ago, were stunned. The breaking news kept rolling. 2 hours later, Liliana smiling at charity events, distributing food at orphanages, walking among powerful figures with grace and confidence. Stanley's chest tightened. I splashed her and she... His voice faltered. She's untouchable. And I am... Whathing? A clown? His friends exchanged glances, half laughing nervously, half stunned. Man, she's upgraded big time, one muttered. Stanley buried his face in his hands, muttering curses under his breath. This is bad. She's married, protected, powerful, and I just, oh God, I just made myself look like an idiot. For the first time, Stanley Black, the billionaire with arrogance oozing from every pore, felt the sting of helplessness. And as the video continued to play, showing Liliana's calm, commanding presence next to Jack Smith, he realized this was a mistake he could never undo. The laughter, the arrogance, the fun, it was all gone. Only dread remained. Back in his chair, staring blankly at the video of Liliana on the news, her elegance, her poise, her power, all of it mocking him silently. And as he watched, the memories of their marriage came rushing back, uninvited, like ghosts that refused to rest. He remembered their first 3 years together, not as happy memories, but as a timeline of chaos, control, and cruelty. The beginning had seemed perfect on the outside. Liliana, bright, kind, trusting. Him, charming, confident, successful. But the truth was buried beneath his charm. The first year had been relatively calm, masked by smiles and polite conversations at dinner parties. But then Stanley's first big contract hit, the $1 million deal that made his company skyrocket. He had exploded with pride, throwing numbers and champagne around his office, laughing like a man who had conquered the world. At home, Liliana had been excited for him, clapping her hands, praising him. Stanley, this is amazing. All your hard work. And he had snapped. Stop, he had shouted, face red with arrogance and anger. Stop congratulating me like some naive little girl who doesn't understand how the world works. You think this changes anything for you? For us? He remembered the way she had flinched, her hand frozen mid-applause, her eyes wide, trying to understand why joy had suddenly turned into fury. From that moment, things had spiraled. Every success of his became her fault. Every minor mistake she made, a misplaced shoe, a misheard sentence, became an opportunity for punishment. Stanley chuckled bitterly at the memory, a sarcastic twist curling his lips. I was generous, wasn't I? A husband who taught his wife life lessons. By the second year, the chaos had escalated. The shouting matches had become daily events. Liliana would stand in the hallway, trembling, while he raged over trivial things. Her laughing too loudly at a movie, her spending time with a friend he didn't approve of, even her choice of dress. Every little thing set him off. "Do you think I make money for us?" he would shout. "Do you think kindness matters in my world?" And she had tried. She had tried to be patient, to reason, to survive. But every attempt to calm him was met with sarcasm and insult. The third year, turning point, was the worst. Stanley's contracts had multiplied, his wealth had exploded, and with it, his arrogance and cruelty. He remembered one particular night with perfect clarity. It was late, rain tapping against the windows. Liliana had made dinner, quietly, carefully, hoping to please him. Stanley came home, drenched from a meeting, papers clutched in his hands, his tie crooked. He looked at her, and something snapped. "What is this?" he had shouted, flinging the plate across the room. Soup splattered like paint across the walls. Liliana froze. I thought you might be hungry," she had stammered, eyes wide. "Hungry!" Stanley had roared, grabbing her wrist with iron strength. "Do you know what I do all day? Do you know how I fight, how I bleed for every deal, for every million that makes this house, this life possible? And this little pathetic meal is your contribution." He had hit her. Not a slap, not a push. He had struck her brutally. Her body hit the floor with a sickening thud. She tried to crawl away, tears streaming down her face, but he towered over her, eyes dark, voice cold as ice. "Get up?" "No, not until you remember your place. Not until you understand how lucky you are. I even let you breathe my air." The memory made him smirk bitterly now. Generous. Yes, generous with pain. A masterclass in marriage, really. She had survived that night barely conscious, crawling into the hospital, bruised, broken, and humiliated. And beside her, he had left a note, crisp, cold, final. "Do not return. Your bill is fully paid." Stanley's laughter now was low, dark, almost inhuman. But even as he remembered the chaos he had caused, a small, bitter part of him felt satisfaction. He had broken her, or so he thought. And yet, the video on the screen reminded him that all that cruelty, all that power had failed. Liliana had risen, stronger, untouchable, and married to a man who could protect her and crush anyone who dared to hurt her again. Stanley's fingers trembled as he scrolled through the images, charity events, powerful gatherings, her smile, unbroken, unwavering. And beside her, Jack Smith, the son of a ruthless army general, calm, no nonsense, impossible to intimidate. His friends, who had been watching him rant and laugh earlier, were now silent. The laughter had died in the room. One finally whispered, almost nervously, "Bro, she's married to him? The general's son?" Stanley leaned back, staring at the screen, voice hollow, muttering sarcastically, "Oh yeah, that's fair. That's exactly how it should be. The woman I abused, protected by someone who actually has power. Perfect." His chest tightened, anger and panic swirling together. All the arrogance, all the money, all the contracts, none of it mattered. Liliana had survived the worst he could throw at her. She had risen above it. And he, Stanley Black, the man who had thought himself untouchable, realized for the first time that the tables had turned completely. The chaos of the past now collided with the chaos of the present, and Stanley knew he had created a monster of a situation for himself. Liliana wasn't just back. She was untouchable, unbreakable, and most terrifying of all, he had done unthinkable to her. The next morning came with the most beautiful sunshine, but Stanley Black's day was about to go straight to hell. Still half asleep, he stepped out of his mansion with his coffee mug, humming arrogantly. He had convinced himself overnight that Liliana's new status didn't scare him. Army general or no general, what can they do? I'm Stanley Black, he muttered proudly. His driver opened the car door. "Good morning, sir." "Morning," Stanley grunted, sipping his coffee like a king. They rolled toward the gate, but before the car even reached the exit, the driver slammed both feet on the brake. "Sir! Sir!" the driver screamed. What? Stanley snapped, spilling hot coffee on his shirt. The driver pointed with a trembling finger. Sir, look in front. Stanley looked, and his soul fled his body. Directly outside his gate stood a full troop of soldiers, boots shining, faces hardened, guns strapped, standing like pillars of war. The sun bounced off their uniforms, making them appear even more intimidating. Stanley's mouth opened. No sound came out. His driver whispered the obvious. Sir, that is Army General Smith's unit, the no-nonsense one. Stanley swallowed, hard, but his ego rushed to the front before his brain could think. Drive in between them, he barked. Sir, the driver's voice cracked. I said drive! The driver obeyed, reluctantly, slowly pressing the accelerator. As the car inched forward, one soldier stepped forward sharply, raising a hand. If your car moves one more inch, he said in a deep, thunderous voice, you will have yourself to blame. The driver froze. Stanley froze. Time froze. Even the air froze. The soldier continued, voice sharp as a blade. Before I count one, step out. Now. Stanley's heart dropped into his shoes. His lips trembled. His legs shook like soaked spaghetti. Step out, he whispered. One, the soldier said. Stanley flew out of the car so fast that even the driver gasped. He stumbled, slapped the side mirror with his shoulder, and nearly fell on the ground. The troop eyed him like a goat that wandered into a lion's meeting. Another soldier stepped forward and barked, You, Stanley Black! Stanley pointed at himself shakily. Me? No, your ghost. Yes, you! Stanley gulped loudly. You assaulted Madame Liliana yesterday, the soldier continued. The wife of our general's son. Do you think you can splash mud on her and drive away laughing? Stanley blinked stupidly. It wasn't intentional. The soldier raised a brow. Stanley tried again with shaky sarcasm. I mean, rain, mud, slippery. Enough, the soldier roared. Stanley's mouth shut faster than a faulty generator switch. Another soldier waved at him lazily. You are starting with frog jump. Stanley gasped like someone hearing his death sentence. Frog what? Frog jump. Start. Stanley attempted to fake a laugh. You must be joking. I don't do frog sh. The soldier fired into the air. Pam! Stanley screamed and dropped to the ground like a sack of shame. Start, they repeated. Stanley took the frog jump position, hands on his head, knees bent. He jumped forward pathetically. Higher, the soldier commanded. He jumped again, almost falling face first into his own gate. More energy! Stanley's expensive slippers flew off. His driver covered his mouth to stop himself from laughing. The soldiers didn't hide their amusement. One whispered to another, So this is the billionaire that beat Madame Liliana years ago? Another replied, This one no-fit beat mosquito. Look at his legs. Stanley panted, sweating like a soaked bread. Enough, the commanding soldier said. Stanley exhaled in relief, but the soldier wasn't finished. Pause! The troop moved forward, circling him like vultures around a dying chicken. You will apologize to Madame Liliana properly, the soldier said, and General Smith expects you in his office by 12 noon. If you are 1 second late, just one, your life will become a documentary titled The Billionaire Who Entered a Lion's Den. Stanley's mouth fell open. General? Me? No. Yes. The soldier pointed at him so sharply Stanley stumbled. And if you think you can escape, he leaned closer, eyes cold. We know your house. We know your office. We know your family. We know even your side chicks. Stanley gasped. Side what? I don't have side. The soldier raised a brow. Stanley zipped his lips. Driver, the soldier commanded. Take your boss inside. He needs water. He's shaking like generator without fuel. The driver nodded quickly. Stanley staggered toward the car, legs numb, ego shattered, pride leaking like punctured tire. As he entered the car, one soldier added loudly, And buy ointment. You will need it after all the frog jumps we have planned for you at 12. The troop laughed. Stanley almost cried. The car door closed. His hands shook violently as he whispered, What have I done to myself? The driver murmured, Sir, this one past mistake. This one a crisis. Stanley covered his face with both hands, regretting his past, regretting his arrogance, regretting his entire life. And he hadn't even faced General Smith yet. That was the real nightmare waiting. At exactly 12 noon, the soldiers marched Stanley into the mansion like a criminal being taken to judgment, his muddy suit stuck to his skin, his shoes squished with every step, and his legs still trembled from the frog jumps. He smelled like fear, sweat, and regret. As they entered the main hall, the atmosphere changed. Silence. Cold silence. The kind that made a grown man's bones shake. General Smith sat in a high-backed leather chair, shoulders broad, face carved like stone. His medals glinted under the lights. 2 guards stood behind him, armed and expressionless. Liliana sat at his right side, calm, elegant, glowing. No mud, no fear, just quiet power. Stanley's heart stopped for 2 full seconds. A flashback hit him. Flashback of years ago. Liliana kneeling on the floor, begging him, "Stanley, please don't throw my clothes outside, I'm trying." Stanley kicked the bag. "You're trying? Try harder, lazy woman." He slammed the door in her face, back to present. And here she was, untouchable. A soldier shoved Stanley forward. "Sir, we brought him." General Smith didn't speak immediately. He simply stared. Stanley's knees went weak. "Good afternoon, sir. Sir." "Are you talking to me?" General Smith asked calmly. "Yes, sir." Shut up." Stanley shut up instantly. The general rose slowly, the room vibrating with authority. "You think you can humiliate my son's wife and drive away laughing?" "Sir, I didn't know. I didn't recognize." "Which one?" the general asked. "Is it the not knowing or the not recognizing?" Stanley swallowed loudly. "Both." The general nodded. "Good. Because you don't recognize yourself in the mirror either." Everyone in the room tried not to laugh. One soldier coughed loudly to hide his laughter. Liliana simply crossed her legs, watching him like a documentary. General Smith began pacing around Stanley like a lion circling a nervous goat. "Stanley Black," he said, voice deep. "Billionaire, yes?" "Yes, sir, but—" "Silence." Stanley flinched. The general continued. 3 years of marriage to a woman you treated like trash. You beat her, insulted her, starved her, abandoned her in a hospital like a stray dog. And yesterday you saw her on the road, splashed mud on her, and you laughed? "Sir, I can explain." "Explain what?" the general shouted, voice like thunder. Stanley almost peed. "You think marriage is your playground? You think women are punching bags?" Stanley shook his head rapidly. "No, sir. No, sir." General Smith leaned closer, their noses almost touching. "So why were you beating my daughter-in-law when you had the chance?" Stanley's lips trembled. "Sir, I was stupid." "Correct," the general replied. "Continue." "I was childish, arrogant, angry." "Continue." "I was a fool." One soldier whispered to another. "He finally has sense now." General Smith returned to his seat slowly, heavily. Then he pointed at Liliana. "Apologize to her." Stanley turned to her immediately. "Liliana, I'm so—" "No," the general commanded. "Kneel down." Stanley froze. "Kneel," Liliana repeated softly, smiling like a woman who finally got justice. Stanley dropped to his knees so fast the floor echoed. "Good," the general said. "Now apologize like your life depends on it, because it does." Stanley looked at Liliana, voice cracking. "Liliana, I am deeply, terribly, shamefully sorry for everything. I swear I have changed." "Lie," Liliana said calmly. Stanley blinked. "No, You only changed because soldiers stopped your car," she said, "not because your heart changed." Everyone murmured, "True." The general raised a hand. Silence returned. "Mr. Black," he said, voice dangerously calm. "This is just the beginning. You think frog jump is punishment?" He leaned forward. "You touched the wrong woman. You broke the wrong woman? And today, the world will watch you face consequences." Stanley's heart crashed into his stomach. "Escort him," the general ordered. 2 soldiers grabbed Stanley. "To where?" he panicked. General Smith smirked. "You are going to the military training ground." Stanley screamed. "What? For what?" "To learn how to treat a woman properly," the general answered. "And trust me, the soldiers there love new trainees." Liliana rose majestically, her voice soft but lethal. "This is the justice you avoided for years." Stanley's voice cracked. Liliana, please. Mercy. She turned her back and walked away. The soldiers dragged him out like a sack of yam while he kicked the air hopelessly. Camera flashes went off. Social media was already exploding. Stanley's humiliation was far from over. The news broke like a bomb. Within minutes, every major platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, was on fire with one name, Stanley Black. Hashtags flooded the internet. Memes poured in like rain. Someone posted a picture of Stanley mid-frog jump with the caption, Motivation Monday, jump into becoming a better man. Another posted a drawing of his SUV surrounded by soldiers. When you splash mud on the wrong woman. TikTok users recreated his frog jump like a dance challenge. Even children were doing it at school. Stanley became a full-blown joke. His business begins to collapse. By afternoon, 3 board members resigned. 2 major investors withdrew. Clients called nonstop, asking questions like, is it true soldiers arrested you? Why were you crying on air? Are you mentally stable? His biggest investor sent a brutal email. We cannot trust a man who can't control his temper. We withdraw immediately. His company's shares fell so fast, the stock market thought it was a glitch. Reporters camped outside his office. Employees whispered behind his back. Some mocked him openly. Sir, should we call the soldiers to motivate you? One worker joked when Stanley tried giving orders. He fired the man, but the rest only laughed harder. Stanley finally breaks down that evening. Stanley sat alone in his penthouse. No friends, no supporters, no one to defend him. Just the sound of his shame replaying over and over in his mind. Frog jumping, soldiers shouting, General Smith's cold eyes, Liliana's calm smile, the whole country laughing. He buried his face in his hands. I lost my wife. I lost my respect. I lost my business because of pride. A single tear dropped, the tear of a broken man. I should have treated her better, he whispered. I should never have raised my hand on her. I should never have thrown her away. He laughed bitterly. All it took was one puddle, one moment, and my whole empire crashed. Meanwhile, in Liliana's world, Liliana stood on the balcony of her mansion, watching the sunset. Jack Smith wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. Are you okay? He asked gently. She nodded with a peaceful smile. Yes, I finally feel free. She wasn't celebrating Stanley's humiliation. She was celebrating closure. Painful years had finally ended, and now she had a husband who valued her, loved her, and protected her. Jack kissed her forehead. You deserve happiness, Liliana, she smiled, and I finally have it. Back to Stanley. His phone buzzed. A message from Liliana, just one sentence. I forgive you, but forgiveness does not erase consequences. Stanley stared at the message for a long time. Then he whispered, I pray I never meet another puddle in my life. Besties, what a journey. From mud to soldiers to justice and finally to peace. Liliana's story shows that pain may last for a moment, but destiny can still shine brighter than every storm. Thank you for watching till the end. Thank moral lessons. Never look down on anyone. Tables can turn overnight. Treat your partner with love and respect. Pride destroys faster than poverty. Power doesn't make you strong. Character does. When you hurt someone innocent, life has a way of bringing the consequences back to you. Walk away from abusive relationships. Freedom is worth more than suffering. Kindness will take you farther than arrogance ever will. Besties, if you enjoyed this emotional and chaotic story, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us your favorite moment in the comment section. And don't forget to share this story with someone. You might inspire them today. See you in the next story, besties.